Dank.
Think. All right, I'm Mr. Jewett,
And I'm Mr. Decker.
and we're here to talk about episode 4, which will be about FDR and his New Deal.
Yeah, big time coming through here. FDR trying to save the world. As you can see, we're improvising a little bit in our new quarantined headquarters.
Yeah, and from my angle, and maybe from yours, it looks like Mr. Decker is trying to hug the TV version of me. So that's interesting.
Yes, I've kidnapped Mr. Jewett and stuffed him in this iPad so I can hug him a lot during this stressful time.
Can we move on from this? It's making me uncomfortable.
Sure. Anyway, we got some snow.
Yes.
It's a little sad. I thought we were done with this, and then we got like 5 inches of snow.
8.
Well, I guess I was the lucky one then.
Yeah.
So, I didn't personally shovel very much because, it's currently melting away, and I didn't really feel like dealing with it, and we aren't really supposed to go anywhere, so I didn't touch it.
I did. I shoveled for about an hour this morning. The whole time thinking about my students are going to get this, yours won't, possibly. Thinking about Frederick Taylor and how best to shovel. We learned about how to shovel in my class, Mr. Decker.
I'm glad that social studies is very productive.
Oh, yes. It's life lessons.
It really is. I once had a social studies teacher tell me how to make a chocolate cake. We did not learn any history that year.
The entire year?
We learned something about Portland.
Maine or Oregon?
Maine.
Okay.
We learned about Henry David Thoreau, which is cool. And we learned how to make a chocolate cake.
Hopefully they learned more from this video than you did in that entire year then.
I would hope so.
Alright, so let's do it.
So
let's talk about FDR.
Yeah, well actually, first up, we have to clarify about question 1 from the Dust Bowl.
Yeah.
It occurs to us that we may have worded the question a little bit meanly, I guess. It's asking to compare and contrast the human and ecological reasons for the Dust Bowl. And literally what we're looking for is what are some man-made reasons the Dust Bowl happened. We could talk about things like over-farming. And then what are some ecological or natural reasons for it, like, say, a drought that lasts 15 years.
Nice job giving them an answer.
Sometimes you have to give them an example, and then they have to write a paragraph explaining what those differences were and why they made such an impact.
Why, hello there, Hazel. How are you, pretty girl? That's my dog. She's not feeling well.
Anyway, so FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. You always know someone's important when you have to call them by their full name.
That's why my students call me Mr. Jewett.
Right. So, FDR is famously he's fifth cousin with Teddy Roosevelt. He's a Roosevelt. Came from a lot of money. He was governor of New York. Very popular, very well spoken, and also hiding a pretty interesting secret to the American people.
Yeah, that secret. Do we want to talk about polio then right now?
I suppose we should probably talk about polio.
Alright, so polio, it was a disease where it kind of slowly takes away your ability, especially like the lower part of your body, to function properly. And for most of his presidency, FDR actually couldn't walk on his own, and when he did give speeches, he would have things that would help him stand up, and most of the time he got around in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
You couldn't hide something like that from the American people today, but we're talking about the 1930s and early 1940s, and he was somehow successful at hiding that from the American public.
Yeah, it's actually kind of amazing. Even the people that knew him the best were basically sworn to never tell anyone, and they wouldn't talk about it, and it was basically a really well-kept secret. And, eventually it was part of the reason that he died, but that's a long ways away. We don't have to talk about it. Fun fact, the Roosevelts have a house. It's in Campbell Island, which is it's like an hour from Calais, Maine. It's technically owned by the U.S. and Canada, and you can go take tours of it because no one lives there anymore, and it's been turned into a museum. They have what's called a Dutch window, which is a giant kind of oval-shaped window, which at the time probably cost about $10,000 to bring across the ocean and put in that house. So
Yeah, I'm not doing that for a window.
it's a cool window.
Still though.
Still just a window.
Yeah.
So anyway, FDR famous for the New Deal. So what's the New Deal?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
All right. So the New Deal, FDR passed this very early on into his presidency, and it was to help change the course of the American economy. With the stock market crashing at the end of the 1920s in 1929, October, in fact, FDR took over as president in 32. Things had not improved since 29. In fact, they'd gotten worse. The New Deal was just his plan to right the ship and make the country, better again, and give people jobs and make people feel safe and optimistic, and hope that one day, hopefully soon, that things are going to be better.
Yeah, FDR was really big into this sort of like, it's all going to be okay. We're going to get through this. If we work together, yeah, it's going to be a solution for everybody, not just a solution for a select few. And it was popular. People like that.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why he was so popular was not only because he did promise for this betterment. I'm going to make that a word. For the American public, but he also talked to the American public, very frequently through the radio. People would listen around their radio at their houses, and FDR would speak to them. And these were called fireside chats, where he would go on the radio and just tell the American public what was going on and how things were improving from times previously.
Yeah, and it was one of those things. I mean, you didn't have TVs, so everybody who had a radio was tuning in to listen to the president talk about things. It was like listening to somebody, like your parents, tell you a story or something like that, but it was every night, or at least multiple times a month, and people would tune in and listen. So FDR is what's called a progressive Democrat, which the last time we were talking about progressives, we were talking about progressive Republicans during the progressive era. So what does progressive mean then?
Progressive, it just means you are wanting to make the lives of the working class better. You look at Teddy Roosevelt during the progressive era, and he kind of attacked those big businesses and tried to make and protect the consumers within the United States. So your factory employees, the people that weren't ultra wealthy. That's a main goal of progressivism.
Yeah, it's this idea that the government doesn't just exist to protect the borders or deal with other countries. It's also to protect the people living in the country from some of the negative aspects of life, especially in the early 1900s, where people worked 60 hours a week or more for 5 cents an hour, and they might get hurt at work and then get fired. And the whole point of the progressive movement was to protect people from that. And FDR kind of evolves it into this new progressive presidency where he expands the power of the president in an effort to directly improve people's lives.
Yeah, and one of the things that the Republicans had done in the 20s, the majority, actually all of the presidents of the 20s were Republicans, and we mentioned it already, but one of their things was, that laissez-faire belief that, the government should just let businesses be businesses and let capitalism kind of control the economy. But now it's FDR people are kind of looking to that laissez-faire mindset of, well, it didn't really work because here we are in a depression, and let's see if the government can actually help and put, jobs back out on the street for people to have.
Right. One of the things that made Hoover so unpopular was the fact that it seemed like he wasn't doing enough. And he was just saying, you know what, it's going to get better eventually, and we're going to be fine, and I'm not going to do a lot. And so FDR is basically the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, in fact, FDR is going to use a lot of the government's money and power to help those in need directly. We're going to talk about this more in our next video, actually, but he created a lot of different programs and relief programs to really put America back to work and give people jobs and kind of help circulate money and help the economy by using government money to supply jobs or give jobs to people that earned them.
Right. So I think that's what we got for the start for FDR. Am I missing anything?
Other than we did have a thing on fundamentally changing the role of the president.
Oh yeah, FDR. His entire shtick is he makes the president a more important job. Kind of throughout American history, presidents have slowly been getting more power, but FDR probably makes the biggest jump. He does this thing where the Supreme Court is trying to tell him that his New Deal programs are unconstitutional. So he says, well, what if we added more court justices so I could put them with people that like me, and then you won't be able to tell me no anymore. And even though that didn't happen, it scared the Supreme Court. It was called court packing. And the Supreme Court backed down and allowed a lot of his New Deal policies to go through.
A lot of people didn't like that either, but it did work in FDR's favor in the long run.
Yeah. It was one of the few things he did that really unimpressed a lot of people. But all right, I think that's all we got. We'll be back for another episode coming up soon. We'll be talking about the New Deal and what it was and how it worked. So tune in.
Have fun, kids. Be safe.